Matt, we're getting new lines in from the White House in the last hour that I just wanted to bring you an update on. It turns out that the US was informed by Israel ahead of this strike in Qatar, and the US in turn told the Qataris about the imminent strike. Netanyahu and Trump spoke over the phone after the strike. Also, according to the lines from the White House, Netanyahu told Trump that, quote, he wants to make peace fast. But there is this interesting extra line which says, according to the White House spokesperson, that this did not advance Israel or US goals. And I suppose what they're getting at there is, if the Israelis did not kill the senior Hamas leaders that they were targeting, if this strike jeopardizes the lives of the hostages still being kept inside Gaza, and crucially, if it torpedoes ceasefire talks, what was the point of it? Airstrikes in Doha and the possibility of a meaningful ceasefire in Gaza in flames. Shortly before 4 p.m, a building in the Qatari capital embassy district was targeted. This building, the offices of Hamas. What's left of the organization's leadership are based here. They say their negotiation delegation was targeted while discussing the latest US proposal for a ceasefire, which Qatar was facilitating. The IDF said it had conducted a precise strike, and the two senior members of Hamas's political bureau were targeted, Khalil al-Hayya and Zahar Jabarin. Hamas said both survived, but that 5 more junior officials were killed, including al-Hayya's son. Not long after the attack, the incongruous setting of a celebration of American independence in Jerusalem's Museum of Tolerance, and Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the crowd.
On this day, as in previous days, Israel acted wholly independently, and we take full responsibility for this action. And this action can open the door to an end of the war.
Donald Trump said at the weekend that Hamas should accept a ceasefire deal or else. Now we know what or else looks like. A senior official in Jerusalem told local media that the US president gave the green light for the strike in Qatar. Back in Doha, though, doors closing. The Qataris said the strike meant the end of their role as mediators.
This criminal attack represents a flagrant violation of all international laws and customs, and a serious threat to the safety and security of Qataris.
With this attack, the message from Israel is clear. Ceasefire talks are over for now. This is airstrike diplomacy. The message from Israel to Gazans today also came from the skies. Yesterday, Benjamin Netanyahu told people to leave Gaza City now, and today that message in leaflet form. The IDF telling around 1 million city residents to evacuate southwards to the Al-Mawasi area and a so-called humanitarian zone. People like Abu Mohammed Hirez and his 8 children.
We were surprised this morning by the leaflets mentioning a humanitarian zone. I don't know where such a zone is. If it exists, we would go there, but we don't feel like there is one.
So, for the umpteenth time, thousands on the move. People who've had to relocate so much they're losing count. Hours before the Israeli strike in Doha today, one father, Mahmoud Adab's, pleading with negotiators to find a solution.
We are attempting to delay death a little longer. We have been displaced approximately 30 times, moving from one death to another, but we are trying to postpone death a little. What is the fault of these children? Why is this happening to that child and that one? Oh, Arabs, Muslims, negotiators, please find a solution for us in any possible manner.
After the strike on Doha, that wish less likely to be granted, as is this family's ability to postpone death again.
Porrick O'Brien reporting. Well, tomorrow Keir Starmer is due to meet the visiting Israeli President Yitzhak Herzog, prompting heavy criticism from many in his own party. And joining me now from Washington is our US editor Anushka Astana, and from Westminster our senior political correspondent Paul McNamara. First to you, Anushka, what's the White House saying tonight then?
Well, the reports that suggested Donald Trump had given a green light for this strike to take place came from Israeli officials. And I have to say, having just listened to the press secretary, Caroline Levitt, talk about this, green light is not a word I would have used. It was very clear that while the US was notified about this, the military was told, and they immediately told the White House. Donald Trump then asked Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to tell the Qataris that this was actually about to happen, but they described it overall in very unfortunate terms. Just have a listen to what she said.
President Trump immediately directed Special Envoy Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack. President Trump wants all of the hostages in Gaza and the bodies of the dead released, and this war to end now. President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. The president also spoke to the Emir and Prime Minister of Qatar and thanked them for their support and friendship to our country. He assured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil.
So very clearly, the language there suggests that they're not very happy about this, despite that notification. They didn't go as far as dressing down Netanyahu, the suggestion being that it is right that the Israelis are able to try to target Hamas. But remember, they see their relationship with Qatar as really important. You know, Donald Trump visited the country in May. It was quite a controversial trip because he was granted that lavish gift of a plane worth $400 million. So he sees that as important. Steve Witkoff is said to have met them last week in Paris. So they're not happy, but they've not gone as far as dressing down Netanyahu.
Anushka, thanks very much. Let's go straight to Paul in Westminster. Was Downing Street warned about this, Paul?
No, the government was completely blindsided by this. No prior warnings, no knowledge of what was about to unfold. Now, in the aftermath of this attack, the next 24 hours are going to get very uncomfortable for the Prime Minister, because tomorrow he will be hosting Isaac Herzog, the Israeli president, into Downing Street. It was pre-arranged. It will still go ahead. Only now the level of anger among Keir Starmer's own MPs has been ratcheted up. Number 10 say Sir Keir will raise, quote, the intolerable situation in Gaza and the action Israel must take to end the horrific suffering we're witnessing with the Israeli president. But a whole bunch of his own MPs don't want this meeting to happen point blank. 60 MPs and peers from Labour, the SNP and the Greens have lobbied the government to say that they don't want Isaac Herzog to be allowed into the country because they say it risks the UK being complicit in genocide under the terms of a UN treaty. Today, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has said that Israel risks becoming a pariah state. So we've got front benchers being more outspoken. Tomorrow, you can bet your bottom dollar that a lot more backbenchers will be far more outspoken. And all of this unfolding while Sir Keir Starmer is still mulling over whether or not to recognise the Palestinian state at a UN summit.
Paul in Westminster, thank you very much indeed. Well, earlier I spoke to the retired Israeli Brigadier General Amir Avivi, and I began by asking him what the logic was he thought behind these strikes in Qatar.
This is the government of Hamas. In the last months, we've seen them again and again opposing any deal, at the beginning a partial deal and then the full deal. And it was obvious that at this point, if we want to win decisively the war, we need to really move forward with executing, what was planned to eradicate this entity.
But these are the people that you've been negotiating with. These are the people who can get the hostages released and institute some kind of ceasefire. If they don't like the deal that you're proposing, do you just kill them?
So at this point, the understanding is that the only way to get the hostages and win the war, and winning the war is not just about the hostages, is to win decisively in Gaza. Israel is not going to deal anymore with terrorists sitting in five-star hotels in Doha. Israel is going to deal with the kidnappers in Gaza itself. And part of the destruction of Hamas is also eradicating the leadership who planned and executed the 7th of October. So this is what Israel is doing.
Yeah, but you killed, the political leadership when they were in Iran. You killed the military and the political leadership in Gaza. I mean, when are you going to stop?
When there will be total victory, when we'll see unconditional surrender of this terror organization, when they will lay down their weapons and surrender and give us back the hostages and get out of Gaza.
The Qataris have been neutral, in this whole matter. They're really upset that you've attacked their sovereign territory. The United Arab Emirates, one of the few countries that has full diplomatic relations with Israel in the region, has called the attack barbaric. I mean, aren't you in danger of breaking off ties with the few friends you have in the region?
They really think that Israel is doing the right thing. They want to see Hamas eradicated. Hamas is a danger not only to Israel, but to the whole moderate Sunni.
But even if they don't like Hamas, you're attacking Hamas on Qatari sovereign territory, and that's crossing a red line.
No, it's not crossing a red line. The red line is hosting murderous terrorists in your country. I mean, it needs to be clear. Anybody who is hosting terrorists needs to take in account that these terrorists will be hit in this place.
Is it your understanding, you're in Washington right now, that Donald Trump gave a green light for this attack?
Yeah, I'm sure that things are fully coordinated with the US. I know that the Prime Minister of Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu, speaks weekly to the president and updates him. I think that Israel and US are completely aligned in the understanding that there needs to be a total victory. There needs to be eradication of Hamas as a terror organization. Now, we might see some countries, lamenting about what happened, but I can tell you that in the coming months, when this war will end, we'll see the implementation of peace agreements. Abraham Accord will be expanded to other countries, and we'll see stability and prosperity in the Middle East.
But Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy to the region, was meeting Hamas negotiators in Paris, to discuss a deal. They were close to getting a deal, and you've just blown it all up.
There was no deal. Hamas was just trying to gain more time. Again and again, they refused to do a deal. They could have done a deal months and months ago. Every time we had an agreed deal, they rejected it. It needs to end with a clear victory and with Hamas getting out of Gaza. And by the way, liberating the Gazans themselves from this terrible terror organization.
Amir Avivi, thanks very much.
My pleasure.
Well, joining me now is Hussein Hariri, a former Egyptian diplomat and assistant foreign minister. Thank you very much for coming on the program, Mr. Hariri. You heard the Israeli just now. He said that essentially they're doing Egypt and the region a favor by getting rid of Hamas and launching this airstrike on Hamas negotiators in Qatar, that they've opened the door to peace. Do you agree with them?
No, not at all, sir. Not at all, sir. On the contrary, the Egyptian presidency today, in a statement, condemned the Israeli attack on the Hamas leaders in Qatar and reaffirmed our support for Qatar in protecting and defending its sovereignty.
Right.
I'm afraid that the Israeli attack today won't help neither the cause of peace nor the negotiations that were going on in order to release the Israeli hostages and to bring this war to an end. It seems to me that the Israeli government is more interested in perpetuating this war than in getting the hostages back to their homes, back to their families, and ending the war and bringing in humanitarian assistance that would really help the Palestinians in the Gaza.
All right. Now, I know that the Egyptian government is not a friend of Hamas and you don't like Hezbollah. And although you're condemning Israel's methods, I wonder whether you secretly and quietly quite like the fact that the Israelis are getting rid of Hamas in this brutal way, and the same thing with Hezbollah.
Not at all, sir. And please allow me to reiterate the Egyptian position. Maybe we have our differences with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Maybe we have our differences with Hamas and al-Jihad, Islamic Jihad. But that does not mean at all that we'll ally ourselves with Israel in attacking these organizations and these resistance movements. The Egyptian perspective is completely different from the Israeli one. We don't consider them terrorists, not at all. These people are defending their land.
Right. Now, if that is the case, and if you think that Israel has crossed a red line with some of these attacks, especially the latest one against Qatar, at what stage does the Egyptian government say, enough is enough, we will break off relations with Israel?
Breaking off relations with Israel, maybe it's not in the cards, because we have signed a peace treaty back in 1979, and we have honored it, not only for the sake of Egypt, but for the sake of peace in the Middle East. And the Egyptian government is still working for peace in the Middle East. And
but
particularly...
But your efforts are not going anywhere. It's not leading to any peace. I wonder at what stage you decide to basically use, forgive the term, the nuclear option, the ultimate threat of withdrawing diplomatic relations. Maybe that will concentrate Israeli minds.
Well, I don't want to jump to conclusions, sir, but if the Israelis, what I can say is the following. If the Israelis would maintain the course that they have adopted, that the war on the Palestinians, open-ended war on the Palestinians, whether in the Gaza Strip or in the West Bank, and on other Arab countries, but for instance, in southern Lebanon, in Syria, I guess maybe we will reach a point where peace with Israel will be questioned.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Hussein Haridi in Egypt, thank you very much indeed for coming on the program.